Breaking tonight, a new report alleging that investigators looking into the stabbing of a 9-year-old boy on New York's Staten Island nearly a year ago attack as a possible audition for ISIS. Trace Gallagher's live in our West Coast newsroom with this very strange story. Trace.
Shannon, the suspect is 21-year-old Fareed Mamouni, who is currently in jail facing terrorism charges for allegedly stabbing an FBI agent multiple times while the feds were serving a search warrant. The FBI agent survived thanks to his body armor, but Mamouni is also accused of trying to grab the rifle of another FBI agent. Mamouni, along with another man, were being investigated for plotting a terrorist attack in New York, including a plan to use a pressure cooker bomb in Times Square on behalf of ISIS. Mamouni is already facing 85 years in prison, and now New York police sources tell our cousin publication, the New York Post, that Mamouni is also a person of interest in the stabbing of a 9-year-old New York boy last January. In that case, the boy was walking to school when a man was captured on closed-circuit television, attacking the child and stabbing him in the neck with a kitchen. Police have a theory that Mamouni, a wannabe jihadist, was attempting to slice the boy's throat in what appeared to be an ISIS audition. Police say the attacker resembles Mamouni and that he lived less than 600 yards from the boy. The 9-year-old survived the attack but was so afraid of his neighborhood that he moved to Atlanta to live with his grandmother. The feds have not commented on the suspect's alleged involvement in the attack on the young boy. Shannon.
All right, Trace, thank you very much. The New York Post is also reporting NYPD detectives investigating this knife attack have grown frustrated with federal investigators. They say won't give them access to the terror suspect, Fareed Mamouni. Joining me now, J. Christian Adams, former DOJ attorney and author of Injustice, exposing the racial agenda of the Obama Justice Department. Great to see you tonight.
Hey, Shannon.
All right, what do you make of this? I mean, as somebody who has operated as a federal attorney, I mean, is it possible that there's something about the terrorism case that could be jeopardized if they work with the NYPD? Why do you think no coordination there?
Well, it sounds like there could be something about the terrorism case that could expand it to another terrorism case. It's very troubling that the Justice Department and the FBI is not cooperating with local law enforcement like they used to years ago on terrorism-related issues. I mean, why is it that the federal government hasn't moved forward on this attack on a child walking to school and not brought federal charges or looked into it or shared information with the NYPD like they used to years ago? They take it very seriously. It doesn't seem that that's the priority anymore.
Well, and this little boy's family says that, at some point they thought either the, police or law enforcement officials sort of either forgot or kind of gave up on the case. And I got to imagine it's frustrating for them to hear there may be some link to this guy who's named a person of interest, though not a formal suspect in the stabbing, and that the NYPD can't get any information or access to him.
And most everybody in America realizes, except the Obama administration, that the jihadist Islamic State war is now on American soil. There's a lot of reasons, Shannon, why the federal government under Obama would not want to have this narrative out there. For example, what are parents going to think? You have children walking to school potentially being slaughtered by an Islamicist from the Islamic State. The fact that there is not a gun in this perhaps is why we don't hear more about it, because it can't be converted into a domestic political narrative for the president. So there's a lot of reasons why this administration might not be looking at this as seriously as they ought to.
As a state law enforcement agency or city enforcement agency, is there any way that they'd have a legal way to force access to this suspect or to force cooperation? Does the NYPD have any options?
Well, of course, they could always have grand jury subpoenas, but more than likely the defendant is not going to testify, will invoke their Fifth Amendment rights to not do anything. But yes, the NYPD could conduct their own investigation, but access to the evidence that the federal government has could be very helpful. And the question is, why won't the federal government cooperate? This administration does not seem to want to admit that there's a problem on American soil. They aren't doing what other administrations used to do. They aren't monitoring the problem, Shannon. They're conducting outreach with the problem. They aren't taking things as seriously as they ought to.
Well, we know we've been talking tonight about the new narrative that they're having on fighting terror, that they're working on to make sure that the American people are more fully informed about what they are doing, what they are accomplishing. Is this more of that messaging issue? Because as you mentioned, there have been numerous cases that we have covered over the last several years that seem to have a terrorism connection that the administration at some level does not want to label as such.
Yes, because it shows they're failing in keeping America safe. They're failing because, Shannon, they have a whole different worldview toward the terrorists, toward the Islamic State. They thought it could be contained. They thought it wasn't serious. Failure after failure has marked this administration's policies toward the Islamic State. But now that they're here, now that they're killing, might be attacking children on the way to school with a knife, you see an administration ill-equipped to deal with it because they don't seriously have an understanding of sort of the spiritual, the theological. They can't believe somebody would be motivated for religious reasons to do this sort of evil. They don't even like to use the word evil. They treat this as a straight-up criminal justice matter. They just don't seem to have the tools to deal with Islamic State terror, and Americans are starting to see it.
Well, we will stay on this case involving this 9-year-old boy and see what we can find out, and hopefully there will be some into a resolution. J. Christian Adams, good to see you. Thank you.